Stop scrolling right now. What I'm about to reveal will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about why your blood sugar refuses to budge, no matter how perfectly you eat or how strictly you follow your doctor's orders. This has absolutely nothing to do with willpower. It's not about cutting more carbs. And if you've spent years beating yourself up, feeling like a complete failure every single time you check your glucose monitor, you need to hear what I'm about to tell you. Your cells are locked shut from the inside. Insulin is standing right outside the door, knocking desperately, but nothing's opening. The key exists, the lock is there, but something essential is missing that makes the whole system work. And in the next 52 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why this happens to millions of people, which three minerals your cells are starving for, and how you can start fixing this today with simple changes you'll actually feel in your body within just a few weeks. Before you start obsessing about your next meal, before you spiral into anxiety about tomorrow's fasting blood test, before you grab your glucose monitor to check your numbers again, I want you to pause everything and just notice something that's happening in your body right this very second. How do you actually feel right now? Be completely honest with yourself. You're not in a hospital bed, you're not in acute crisis, but you're also not yourself anymore. There's this heaviness, like you're dragging extra weight that isn't just on the scale. Mornings are harder. You need more time to feel human after waking up. Simple activities that used to be easy, like walking upstairs or doing yard work, now leave you exhausted. There's brain fog that rolls in without any warning, making it hard to concentrate or remember simple things. Your energy crashes hard in the afternoon. No matter how much sleep you manage to get the night before, maybe you wake up multiple times at night. Maybe your legs are restless. Maybe you get random muscle cramps that nobody can explain. That entire collection of symptoms isn't random bad luck. It's definitely not just normal aging, even though that's what everyone keeps telling you when you complain. That sensation, that overall feeling of heaviness and slowness, and not quite being right, is actually your body desperately trying to communicate with you in the only language it has. It's screaming at you about something critical happening at the deepest cellular level that nobody's paying attention to. I'm Dr. Megan Foster. I've spent the last 24 years in active medical practice working directly with thousands of people dealing with blood sugar problems, insulin resistance, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, and all the devastating complications that follow when these conditions aren't addressed properly. I've seen what works and what doesn't. I've watched people do everything right according to conventional wisdom and still get worse. And I've also watched people make specific targeted changes based on understanding their cellular biology and completely turn their health around. Here's the hard truth that most doctors will never tell you in a rushed 15-minute appointment where they're already thinking about their next patient. If your blood sugar absolutely refuses to come down despite your best efforts, it's probably not because you're eating too many carbs. It's probably not because you're secretly cheating on your diet. That's what you've been told over and over. That's what you've been blamed for by doctors who don't have time to dig deeper. But the real issue, the actual root cause in so many cases, is something far more fundamental and far more fixable than anyone's telling you. Insulin physically cannot do its job the way it's designed to. Not because the insulin itself is weak or defective, not because you don't have enough insulin floating around in your bloodstream, but because something absolutely essential at the cellular level, something your cells need to even recognize and respond to insulin in the first place, is completely missing. Think back for just a moment to a time before all of this started. There was a period in your life, maybe it feels like forever ago now, when you could eat relatively normally. You could enjoy meals with your family without calculating every single carb. You could have dessert occasionally without your blood sugar exploding into dangerous territory. Your numbers weren't absolutely perfect, but they were manageable. They were in a range that didn't cause panic. You had real energy that lasted through the day. You slept through the night without waking up 5 times. Your body just worked the way it was supposed to. Now, fast forward to today. You're doing more than you ever did before and getting worse results. You watch every single portion like a hawk. You've cut out foods you used to love. You follow every piece of advice your doctor gives you. You take your medication exactly as prescribed, never missing a dose. You check your blood sugar religiously, and still, despite all of that incredible effort, your fasting glucose stays stubbornly high every single morning. Your numbers spike dramatically after meals, even when you ate something that should be safe. Your A1C barely budges, or worse, it keeps creeping up year after year. That horrible disconnect between your effort and your results is what frustrates people more than anything else I see in my practice. It makes you feel like you're fundamentally broken, like you're personally failing at something that should be simple, when the truth is you're doing everything right and the system itself is what's actually broken. Here's what I need to say to you very clearly and very directly. This situation you're in right now wasn't inevitable. It's not your genetic destiny. It doesn't mean your body is permanently broken beyond any hope of repair. What's happening inside your cells right now is mechanical, not moral. It's biology, not a character flaw. And once you truly understand the actual mechanism of what's going wrong, once you see how the pieces fit together, everything shifts. You stop wasting energy blaming yourself for something that isn't your fault. And you start focusing that energy on fixing the actual underlying problem that nobody's been addressing. Let me explain this in a way that makes perfect sense. Think of insulin as a key. That's the metaphor everyone uses, and it's actually pretty accurate. Now, everyone, and I mean everyone in conventional medicine, focuses entirely on the key. They want more insulin. They prescribe stronger medications to force your pancreas to make more insulin or to make the insulin you have work stronger. They increase your doses. They add more medications. Everything is about that key. But here's what they're completely missing. A key, even the most perfectly crafted key in the world, is absolutely useless if the lock is rusted shut or broken or missing essential parts. Your cells have these tiny molecular doorways on their surface called insulin receptors. These receptors are the locks. They absolutely must recognize insulin's signal when it arrives and respond appropriately. They're supposed to open up and allow glucose, which is sugar, to move from your bloodstream into the cell where it can actually be used for energy. But those receptors, those biological locks, require very specific minerals to function properly. Without adequate levels of those minerals, insulin binding to the receptor does absolutely nothing. The signal hits the door, insulin is knocking as hard as it possibly can, and nothing opens. The door stays locked. Sugar stays trapped in your bloodstream with nowhere to go. Not because you ate too much of it, not because you lack discipline or willpower or moral fiber, but because the cellular message, the biological signal that's supposed to open the door, never actually got through to the machinery that controls it. This is not some fringe theory I made up. This is not alternative medicine or wishful thinking. This is documented, peer reviewed, published science from some of the most prestigious research institutions in the entire world. Large population studies from places like Harvard School of Public Health and the National Institutes of Health have followed this for decades. Researchers have tracked tens of thousands of adults over 20, 30, even 40 years. And they found something absolutely remarkable that should be headline news, but somehow isn't. People living with type 2 diabetes are dramatically, significantly more likely to have serious deficiencies and the key minerals that are directly involved in insulin receptor signaling and glucose metabolism. And here's the part that should change everything about how we treat this condition. Those people in the studies who maintained adequate mineral levels throughout their lives had significantly better glucose control, slower A1C progression, fewer complications, and better overall outcomes, even when their diets were nearly identical to people with low mineral levels. Same food, same calories, same carb intake, completely different cellular response. The critical difference wasn't what these people were eating. It was whether their cells had the basic raw materials they needed to actually respond when insulin showed up and delivered its message. In just a moment, I'm going to walk you through the three specific minerals that most directly affect how insulin signaling works in your body. The first mineral helps insulin physically reach the cell receptor. The second mineral helps insulin activate the machinery inside the cell once the receptor is triggered. And the third mineral protects the insulin producing cells in your pancreas at their source before insulin is even released into your bloodstream. And I'm going to tell you right now, the number one mineral on this list is the single most important one. It's the one that the vast majority of people with long term blood sugar issues are severely deficient in. And it's also the one that people report feeling the fastest, most noticeable improvements from when they finally correct the deficiency. So please stay with me through this entire explanation because this information gets extremely practical extremely quickly. And I promise you'll be able to use this starting today. Well, quick, honest question before we dive into the details. Have you ever been in a situation where your doctor looked at your test results, told you that everything appears fine on paper, your kidney function looks okay, your heart seems relatively stable, no major red flags, but then your blood sugar numbers still absolutely refuse to improve no matter what you try? If that specific frustrating scenario sounds painfully familiar to you, I want you to know you are absolutely not alone in this struggle. There are literally thousands and thousands of people in the exact same situation right now. They're doing everything quote unquote right according to conventional medical wisdom, and they're still getting worse instead of better. And it's not because the standard tests are wrong or useless, it's because those standard tests aren't looking at the right things. They're measuring symptoms and managing crisis, but they're not identifying the root cause. Let me know in the comments if this resonates with your personal experience. It genuinely helps other people watching this realize they're not the only person struggling with this invisible problem that nobody seems to take seriously. Now, let's get extremely specific about these three minerals. I'm going to start with number three and work my way up to the most important one. This order is completely intentional because each mineral actually builds on and supports the function of the one before it. Like they work together as a system. Number three is zinc. When most people hear the word zinc, they immediately think it's just for immune system support, for fighting off colds and flus, maybe for helping wounds heal faster. That's the common misconception, and it's a massive oversimplification of what zinc actually does in your body. Zinc is absolutely required at a fundamental biochemical level to produce, package, store, and release insulin inside the beta cells of your pancreas. Without adequate zinc levels, your pancreas simply cannot manufacture high quality, functional insulin the way it's designed to. Your total insulin output gradually weakens over months and years. Oxidative damage, which is essentially cellular rust, increases dramatically inside the very cells that are supposed to be producing your insulin. And long term complications, especially nerve damage called neuropathy and immune system dysfunction, worsen much faster in people with chronic zinc deficiency. The clinical research data consistently shows that zinc deficiency is extremely common in people who've been living with elevated blood sugar for several years or longer, and yet almost nobody ever tests for it. It's not part of standard diabetes care, it's just ignored. Here's how zinc works practically when you actually use it correctly. Zinc glucinate, which is one specific chemical form of zinc, is generally well absorbed by most people and tends to be gentle on the stomach. The huge mistake that most people make when they try zinc supplementation is taking really high doses sporadically, like once a week when they happen to remember, or taking a big dose for a few days and then stopping for weeks. That approach does not work. Your body needs steady, moderate, consistent support over time, not occasional massive megadoses that overwhelm your system. Consistency beats intensity every single time when we're talking about correcting nutrient deficiencies. And getting zinc right sets the foundation for the next mineral, which takes what zinc started and amplifies it significantly. Number two is chromium. Chromium doesn't replace your natural insulin. It doesn't make your pancreas produce more insulin. What chromium does, and this is critical to understand, is amplify and enhance the signal that insulin sends when it successfully binds to a receptor on the surface of your cell. Think of it like turning up the volume on a speaker system. The message, the content stays exactly the same. But now the cell can actually hear it clearly instead of straining to pick up a faint whisper. When chromium levels are low, which they are in a huge percentage of people with blood sugar issues, you start experiencing really strong cravings, especially for sweets and refined carbs. Your body is desperately trying to get glucose into cells, and when the signaling doesn't work efficiently, your brain interprets that as starvation and screams at you to eat more sugar. Post meal blood sugar spikes get bigger and last longer. Your overall glucose tolerance, which is your body's ability to handle a normal amount of carbs without your blood sugar going haywire, worsens gradually over time. And most people never connect any of these symptoms to a simple missing nutrient because nobody ever mentions it. The published studies that used chromium picolinate, which is a well absorbed form of chromium, consistently show measurable improvements in insulin receptor activity and gradual reduction in A1C levels over a period of several months. Notice I specifically said gradual. This is absolutely not an overnight miracle fix. The mistake people make over and over is expecting their fasting blood sugar to drop by 50 points in the first week. And when that doesn't happen, they immediately give up and declare that chromium doesn't work. Chromium works by slowly restoring and rebuilding the sensitivity of your insulin receptors at the cellular level. That biological repair process takes real time. Consistency over months matters far, far more than the specific dose you take. You're not trying to force a dramatic reaction. You're patiently rebuilding normal cellular function that was lost. But now we're moving into the absolute heavy hitter. This is the mineral that insulin depends on most. This is where things shift from subtle biochemical improvements that you might not immediately notice to actual noticeable changes in how you feel day to day that you can point to and say, yes, something is definitely different and better in my body. Number one, and this is the big one, is magnesium. Magnesium is biochemically required for literally every single step of the insulin signaling cascade. It's involved when insulin first binds to its receptor on the cell surface. It's involved when that receptor activates the complex internal signaling pathways inside the cell. It's involved in the actual transport of glucose across the cell membrane from outside to inside, where it can be used. Without adequate magnesium, insulin resistance worsens steadily and progressively no matter what else you do. Your fasting glucose creeps up year after year. Your A1C stalls and plateaus no matter how perfectly you eat or how much medication you take. And here's what makes magnesium so incredibly important beyond just blood sugar. Magnesium affects circulation throughout your entire body. It affects heart rhythm and blood pressure regulation. It affects nerve function, which is why low magnesium causes numbness, tingling, and neuropathy. It affects kidney health and filtration. It affects how well you sleep through the night. It affects muscle cramps, restless legs, tension headaches. Without enough magnesium in your system, insulin is essentially shouting into a void, screaming a message that nobody can hear or respond to. Here's what people consistently report noticing first when they start seriously correcting magnesium deficiency. And this is fascinating because it's not what you'd expect. The first improvement is not blood sugar, it's sleep quality. They fall asleep faster, they stay asleep longer through the night, they wake up feeling more rested. Restless legs at night decrease or disappear completely. There's a noticeable sense of calmer nerves during the day, less free floating anxiety, less physical tension, fewer random muscle cramps in the calves or feet. Those are not separate random benefits. Those are all metabolic and neurological signals improving in real time because your cells are finally getting the magnesium they desperately need to function the way they're designed to. Magnesium glycinate is the form most often recommended because it's very well absorbed and it's significantly gentler on your digestive system than cheaper forms like magnesium oxide, like which is what most bargain supplements use and which mostly just gives people loose stools without actually raising cellular magnesium levels. Now, if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I've tried supplements before, I've bought vitamins, and I felt absolutely nothing, no change whatsoever. That's a completely fair and valid objection. Let me address that directly and honestly. What I'm talking about here is not about taking massive mega doses of isolated nutrients and trying to force your body to respond. It's not about quick fixes or shortcuts. This is about methodically restoring baseline cellular function slowly, safely, and sustainably over time. You're not trying to fix a decade of deficiency in a week. You're correcting nutritional gaps that built up gradually over years. This requires patience. Always start with moderate doses and increase gradually if needed. If always coordinate with your healthcare provider, especially if you're currently on any medications. Because as your cells start responding better to insulin, which they will, your medication needs will very likely change and doses may need to be reduced to prevent dangerous low blood sugar. We're not forcing artificial outcomes. We're giving your body the basic raw materials it needs to do the job it's already designed to do. Here's the real core issue that most people never address and most doctors never even mention. You can eat a perfectly clean diet. You can take every single medication exactly on time without ever missing a dose. You can exercise religiously, but without the specific minerals that insulin biochemically requires to do its job at the receptor level, the entire system simply cannot respond properly no matter what else you do. That's why so many incredibly dedicated, hardworking, conscientious people feel like they're complete failures despite putting in tremendous effort. It's not a lack of discipline. It's not a lack of willpower or moral strength. It's a lack of basic cellular support at the most fundamental biochemical level. Let me give you a practical, actionable challenge you can start implementing today. For the next 30 consecutive days, focus your energy and attention on restoring your cellular function, not on restricting your food intake even more than you already are. Track 4 simple things consistently. Track your fasting glucose first thing in the morning when you wake up. Track your overall energy level during the day on a simple scale of 1 to 10. Track your sleep quality each night and track your blood sugar stability after meals, how high it spikes, and how long it takes to come back down. You're not looking for absolute perfection. You're looking for small, measurable, consistent improvements over time. That's how real lasting progress actually happens in the real world. Small corrections made consistently with regular feedback. Now let's go significantly deeper into why these 3 specific minerals matter so much and why conventional medical advice completely misses this entire issue. When you go to a standard doctor's appointment for diabetes management, they check your A1c, which is your 3 month average blood sugar. They check your fasting glucose. Maybe they look at your cholesterol panel and do basic kidney function tests, but they almost never, ever check your actual mineral status. Why? Because it's simply not part of the standard diabetes protocol that doctors are taught in medical school and that insurance companies are willing to pay for. The entire focus of conventional diabetes care is managing glucose levels with medication, not investigating or addressing why your cells stopped responding to insulin signals in the first place. It's symptom management, not root cause medicine. But here's what's actually happening inside your body at the cellular level when these critical minerals are depleted over time. Insulin circulating in your bloodstream binds to a receptor on the surface of your cell. That's step 1 of the process. For that initial binding event to trigger the next step in the cascade, which is activating internal cellular machinery, magnesium absolutely must be present at adequate concentrations. Without sufficient magnesium, the signal stops dead right there at the receptor. The door doesn't open. Nothing happens. Even if you have plenty of insulin floating around in your blood, even if your pancreas is working overtime pumping out more and more insulin, your cells simply cannot respond to the signal. Now add low chromium levels into this equation. The few receptors that are managing to respond at all are working at maybe half strength or less. The signal is weak and unclear. The cell hesitates. Glucose stays stuck outside in the bloodstream with nowhere to go. Now layer low zinc on top of that. Your pancreas is actively struggling to produce adequate amounts of high quality, functional insulin in the first place because it doesn't have the zinc it needs for the manufacturing process. The insulin you do manage to produce is less effective than it should be. Oxidative stress and cellular damage build up inside the insulin producing beta cells themselves. And over time, years and decades, those cells start to fail and die off completely. Do you see how this is a cascading, interconnected problem? It's not just one isolated thing. It's a complete system breakdown at multiple levels simultaneously. And trying to fix this complex biological problem with medication alone, without addressing the underlying nutritional deficiencies, is like trying to start a car that has a completely dead battery by just pressing the gas pedal harder and harder. The fuel is sitting there in the tank. The engine itself might be perfectly fine, mechanically, but if the battery is dead, if the spark plugs can't fire, absolutely nothing productive is going to happen, no matter how hard you press that pedal. Let's talk specifically about what depletes these essential minerals from your body in the first place, because understanding the root causes helps you prevent the same problem from happening again, even after you fix it. Chronically elevated blood sugar over months and years absolutely plays a major role. When your blood sugar spikes repeatedly day after day, your kidneys have to work overtime, filtering out the excess glucose and dumping it into your urine. And minerals, especially magnesium, get flushed out right along with that excess sugar. It creates a brutal vicious cycle. High blood sugar depletes your mineral stores. Low mineral levels make your cells more insulin resistant. Insulin resistance makes blood sugar go even higher. Higher blood sugar depletes even more minerals, and the cycle continues spiraling downward. This is why people who've had poorly controlled blood sugar for years consistently feel worse and worse over time, despite doing the same things they've always done. Chronic psychological and emotional stress is another absolutely massive factor that most people completely underestimate. Chronic, unrelenting stress burns through magnesium faster than almost anything else your body does. When you're stressed, your adrenal glands release cortisol and adrenaline. Those stress hormones require magnesium to be properly metabolized and cleared from your system. If you're under constant stress, whether it's from your job, your family situation, financial pressure, health anxiety, caregiving responsibilities, relationship problems, whatever the source, you are actively draining your magnesium stores every single day. And most people never make the connection between their stress levels and their worsening blood sugar control. Certain commonly prescribed medications can also significantly deplete minerals over time. Diuretics, which are very commonly prescribed for high blood pressure, actively flush magnesium and potassium out through your kidneys. Proton pump inhibitors like omeprazole, which millions of people take daily for acid reflux and heartburn, interfere with the absorption of minerals from your food by reducing stomach acid. Even metformin, which is literally the most commonly prescribed first line medication for type 2 diabetes, can reduce vitamin B12 levels and may interfere with magnesium status over long term use. I am absolutely not telling you to stop taking these medications. I'm saying you need to be aware that they have significant downstream nutritional effects that need to be actively addressed with supplementation. And then there's the issue of soil depletion, which is something that almost nobody thinks about, but which is actually really significant. Modern industrial farming practices over the last 50 to 70 years have systematically stripped minerals from agricultural soil. Vegetables and grains grown today have measurably, scientifically documented lower mineral content compared to the exact same varieties of vegetables grown 50 or 60 years ago. So, even if you're eating what you think is a healthy diet rich in vegetables, whole grains, and minimally processed foods, you're getting significantly less magnesium, zinc, and chromium than previous generations got from eating the exact same foods. This is not your personal fault. This is a systemic problem with how our entire food system operates. So, what does all of this mean in practical terms for you? It means that for the vast majority of people living in the modern world, food alone is simply not enough to correct existing mineral deficiencies, especially if blood sugar has been elevated for multiple years. Targeted strategic supplementation becomes medically necessary, not as a replacement for eating real food, but as a focused intervention to restore what's been systematically lost. Now, let's talk about the critical difference between prevention and correction, because this distinction matters. If you're someone with completely normal blood sugar who wants to stay that way and prevent problems, eating a mineral rich, whole foods diet and managing your stress levels might be sufficient. But if you're someone who's already dealing with elevated A1C, documented insulin resistance, prediabetes, or full type 2 diabetes, you're past the prevention stage. You're in correction mode now. And correction requires much more focused, targeted, strategic intervention than prevention does. Here's how to think intelligently about dosing these supplements. For magnesium, most people see the best results with 300 to 400 milligrams daily, ideally split between a morning dose and an evening dose. If you're sensitive or just starting, begin with a lower dose around 150 to 200 milligrams and increase gradually over several weeks. For chromium, 200 to 400 micrograms daily is the range that's been most extensively studied in clinical trials. For zinc, 15 to 30 milligrams daily is the typical therapeutic range, but don't exceed 40 milligrams long term without medical supervision because excessive zinc intake can actually interfere with copper absorption and create new problems. And here's something really important to understand. You're not taking these supplements forever at high therapeutic doses. You're correcting a deficiency that built up over years. Once your cellular levels are restored and your cells are consistently responding better to insulin, which takes months, not weeks, you may very well be able to reduce your supplemental doses or rely much more heavily on food sources for ongoing maintenance. But that transition takes time. Be patient with the process. Give it at least 3 to 6 months of consistent use before you evaluate whether it's working. Let me address another really common concern that comes up constantly. What if I'm already taking a daily multivitamin? Doesn't that cover these minerals? Unfortunately, the answer is almost certainly no. Most standard multivitamins contain chemical forms of these minerals that are very poorly absorbed by your body. Magnesium oxide is extremely cheap to manufacture, so that's what the vast majority of multivitamins use, but your body absorbs less than 4% of it. The rest just passes through and potentially causes digestive upset. Cheap forms of zinc and chromium have similar absorption problems. You might see them listed on the supplement facts label in impressive looking amounts, but that doesn't mean your cells are actually getting any meaningful benefit from them. Targeted supplementation using well absorbed forms like magnesium glycinate, chromium picolinate, and zinc glucinate is dramatically more effective than hoping a generic multivitamin is covering your needs. Now, let's talk about what actually happens when you start getting this right and giving your body what it needs. The very first thing that most people notice is not a change in their blood sugar numbers, it's a change in how they feel physically day to day. Sleep quality improves noticeably. They fall asleep faster and wake up less during the night. Overall energy stabilizes instead of crashing unpredictably. Brain fog starts lifting. Muscle cramps and restless legs decrease significantly or disappear. These are tangible signs that your cells are finally getting the raw materials they need to function normally. The blood sugar improvements come next, but they happen gradually over weeks and months. You might see your fasting glucose drop by 5 to 10 points over the first few weeks. Post meal spikes might come down by 20 to 30 points over the first month or two. A1C might drop by a quarter to half a point over 3 to 6 months of consistent effort. These are realistic, sustainable, healthy improvements that actually last. What you will not see, and this is important to set realistic expectations, is your A1C dropping from 9 down to 6 in a single month. That's not how healthy biological repair works. And honestly, that's actually a good thing. Extremely rapid drops in blood sugar can cause serious complications, especially affecting your eyes and nerves. Slow, steady, gradual improvement is significantly safer for your body and much more likely to be permanent rather than temporary. Here's something that most people don't realize, and that gives me tremendous hope when I explain it. Your body has an absolutely incredible, almost miraculous ability to heal itself and restore normal function if you give it the basic tools and raw materials it needs to do the job. Cells that have become insulin resistant over years aren't permanently, irreversibly broken beyond any hope. They're starved of the nutrients required to respond to signals. Feed them properly and consistently, and they wake back up. Receptors that stopped working start functioning again. Metabolic pathways that shut down completely reopen. This is genuine biological repair at the cellular level, not just temporary symptom management with drugs. But there's a significant catch that I need to be very clear about. This only works if you're consistent over time. Taking magnesium for 1 week, not seeing dramatic immediate results, and then stopping in frustration will accomplish absolutely nothing. Randomly cycling on and off supplements with no plan will not work. Your cells need steady, reliable support over a period of months to rebuild their function properly. Think of it like watering a plant. Giving it one huge watering followed by weeks of complete drought will not keep the plant alive and healthy. Small, consistent watering every single day will. Let's talk about food sources of these minerals because while targeted supplementation is usually necessary for correction of existing deficiencies, food should always be part of your long term foundation. For magnesium, focus on dark leafy greens like spinach, Swiss chard, and kale. Pumpkin seeds and almonds are excellent sources. Black beans and other legumes, and yes, dark chocolate with at least 70% cacao actually contains meaningful amounts of magnesium, so you can feel good about having a small amount. For zinc, oysters are by far the richest natural source, but most people don't eat oysters regularly. More practical everyday options include beef, pumpkin seeds, lentils, and cashews. For chromium, broccoli, green beans, and whole grains are decent sources, though chromium is significantly harder to get in therapeutic amounts from food alone, which is why supplementation makes sense for most people. One critical mistake people make is thinking they can just eat more of these foods for a few days and magically fix years of deficiency. If you've been severely deficient for years, you absolutely cannot reverse that with a week of eating spinach salads. Food is primarily for maintenance once you've corrected the underlying deficiency with therapeutic doses of supplements. Then over time, you can transition to relying more heavily on food and less on high dose supplementation. Now, I want to address the big question about medication that's probably running through your mind. Should I stop taking my diabetes medication if I start taking these minerals? The answer is absolutely, unequivocally no. Do not stop or change your medication doses without direct supervision and guidance from your doctor. What very often happens, and this is actually wonderful, is that as your cells start responding better to insulin, because you've corrected mineral deficiencies, your blood sugar naturally starts coming down, and your medication doses may need to be adjusted downward by your doctor to prevent dangerous low blood sugar episodes. That's a genuinely good problem to have, but it needs to be carefully managed with regular monitoring and medical supervision. Always work collaboratively with your doctor. Monitor your numbers consistently. Adjust your medication doses as needed under supervision. Here's the fundamental reality that I want you to understand. Minerals and medications are not opposing forces fighting against each other. They work together synergistically. Medication manages your blood sugar right now in the present, while your cells are still resistant and not responding properly. Minerals restore the underlying cellular function over time that allows your body to eventually manage blood sugar on its own with less pharmaceutical intervention. The ultimate goal is not to completely replace medication with minerals. The realistic goal is to restore enough normal cellular function that over time you need less medication, and in some cases, after months or years, potentially no medication at all. But that's a long term process that requires time, patience, and careful medical supervision every step of the way. Let me share what I consistently see happen in my clinical practice when people actually implement this approach properly. Someone commits to taking magnesium, zinc, and chromium consistently every single day without fail. Within about 2 weeks, their sleep quality noticeably improves. Within about a month, their fasting glucose readings start trending downward. Within 3 months, their post meal blood sugar spikes are measurably smaller and resolve faster. Within 6 months, their A1C has dropped by half a point or more. Their doctor starts cautiously reducing their medication doses. Their overall energy is dramatically better. They feel more like their old selves again. And most importantly, they stop feeling like they're constantly fighting against their own body. They start feeling like their body is finally working with them instead of against them. That fundamental shift in how you perceive and relate to your own health is just as important as the objective numbers. When you've been struggling and suffering for years, when you've been repeatedly told it's all your fault, when you felt like a complete failure at managing your own health, finally seeing real measurable progress changes absolutely everything about your mindset and motivation. It's not just physical healing, it's emotional and psychological healing too. But I also consistently see people who give up way too soon and rob themselves of results. They try for 2 weeks, don't see dramatic changes, and immediately quit in frustration. Or they take the supplements inconsistently, a few days on and then a few days off, and then wonder why nothing's improving. Or they expect to feel absolutely perfect immediately and get discouraged when they still have occasional bad days. This is a process of gradual biological repair. Real healing takes real time. Progress is absolutely not linear. There will be good days and bad days and frustrating plateaus. The key to success is simply to keep going consistently through the ups and downs. I'm Dr. Megan Foster. Thank you so much for staying with me through this entire conversation. I know 52 minutes is a genuinely long time to focus on one single topic in today's world of short attention spans. But this information matters deeply. Your health matters. You matter. And you absolutely deserve to understand what's actually happening inside your body at the cellular level and what you can realistically do about it. Before we wrap up, let me give you some final practical strategies that will make all the difference between success and frustration. Let's talk about testing your mineral status, because this is where conventional medicine often completely fails you. Standard blood tests for magnesium are notoriously unreliable and frankly misleading. Your serum blood magnesium can show perfectly normal, while your actual cellular magnesium stores are severely depleted. This happens because your body is brilliant at survival. It will actively steal magnesium from your cells, your bones, and your muscles to maintain blood levels that keep critical functions like your heartbeat stable. So your blood test comes back normal while your cells are starving. A much more accurate test is red blood cell magnesium or ionized magnesium. But most doctors won't order these unless you specifically request them. Zinc can be measured with serum zinc, though it also has limitations. Chromium is almost never tested because reference ranges are poorly established. If you can't get proper testing, which is the reality for most people, you use clinical judgment based on symptoms. Poor sleep, muscle cramps, restless legs, fatigue, high blood sugar, that's very likely magnesium deficiency, strong, uncontrollable sugar cravings, big post meal spikes, poor glucose tolerance, that's likely chromium deficiency, weak immunity, slow healing, long term blood sugar problems, that's likely zinc deficiency. Try supplementing at safe doses and monitor your response. That's your real world functional test. Now let's get specific about implementation. Start with magnesium first. It has the broadest benefits and fastest noticeable effects. Take it for 2 weeks consistently and assess sleep, muscle cramps, and overall sense of calm. If you see improvements, add chromium next. Give that another 2 to 3 weeks. Then add zinc as the third piece. Stagger your additions so you can identify what's helping and what isn't. Don't just throw everything at the problem on day one and hope for the best. Timing matters too. Magnesium is often best taken in the evening because it promotes relaxation and sleep. Chromium is typically taken with meals because it works on post meal blood sugar. Zinc can be taken with food to reduce stomach upset. These are guidelines, not absolute rules, but they optimize absorption and effects. Quality matters tremendously. Not all supplements are created equal. Look for reputable brands that do third party testing. USP verified or NSF certified are good indicators. Avoid bargain basement supplements from unknown manufacturers. You're literally putting these into your body. Quality matters. And read labels carefully. Make sure you're getting the right chemical form. Magnesium glycinate or citrate, not oxide. Chromium picolinate, not chromium chloride. Zinc glucinate or citrate, not zinc oxide. Let's talk about what realistic expectations should be week by week. Week 1, you likely won't see dramatic blood sugar changes yet, but notice sleep quality, muscle tension, overall energy. Week 2, fasting blood sugar might drop 5 to 10 points from your baseline. You might feel calmer, less anxious. Week 3 to 4, post meal spikes should start getting smaller and resolving faster. Cravings might decrease noticeably. Month 2, blood sugar improvements become more consistent. You should see real measurable changes in fasting glucose and post meal numbers. Month 3 to 6, this is when A1C typically shows meaningful improvement. Your doctor might start cautiously reducing medications. You feel dramatically better overall, not just in blood sugar, but in energy, mood, sleep, everything. This timeline isn't guaranteed because everyone's different, but it's what I consistently see when people actually follow through. The critical word is consistency. Missing doses, taking random breaks, giving up after 2 weeks, none of that produces results. Common mistakes that sabotage people's success. Mistake 1, buying the absolute cheapest supplements without checking the mineral form. Magnesium oxide is cheap but worthless. You need the good stuff. Mistake 2, taking supplements sporadically, 3 days on, 4 days off. Your cells need steady support. Mistake 3, expecting overnight miracles and quitting when you don't see dramatic changes in 1 week. This is biological repair, not pharmaceutical magic. Mistake 4, not working with your doctor to adjust medications as your blood sugar improves, which can cause dangerous low blood sugar. Mistake 5, only focusing on supplements while ignoring stress, sleep, and food quality. You need the complete approach. You need the stress management deserves another mention because it's that critical. Chronic stress keeps cortisol chronically elevated. High cortisol tells your liver to constantly dump stored glucose into your blood. This raises blood sugar independent of food. Cortisol also directly causes insulin resistance. And stress burns through magnesium rapidly. So, stress raises blood sugar, blocks insulin, and depletes the mineral you need. Triple threat. You absolutely must address stress. Real stress management means deep breathing that activates your parasympathetic nervous system, regular movement that burns off stress hormones, setting boundaries with draining people and obligations, getting professional help for anxiety or depression if needed. These aren't optional luxuries, they're medical necessities. Sleep quality is both a symptom and a cause of blood sugar problems. Poor sleep decreases growth hormone, elevates cortisol, dysregulates hunger hormones, worsens insulin resistance, and makes you too tired to exercise or cook healthy food. But magnesium improves sleep. Better sleep improves insulin sensitivity. Better insulin sensitivity improves blood sugar. Better blood sugar improves sleep. It's a virtuous cycle once you get it moving in the right direction. I see patterns in my practice. Patient type 1 does supplements perfectly but ignores stress and sleep. Minimal results. Patient type 2 manages stress and sleep but doesn't fix mineral deficiencies. Results plateau. Patient type 3 addresses minerals, stress, and sleep together. Dramatic sustained results. You need all three working together as a system. Gut health affects everything. If your digestive system is damaged from years of poor diet, medications, or stress, you won't absorb minerals well. Signs include chronic bloating, gas, irregular bowel movements, undigested food and stool. If that's you, you may need gut healing first, or higher supplement doses, or specific forms that bypass damaged absorption. Hydration matters more than people think. Minerals function in water. Your cells need adequate hydration for minerals to work. Chronic mild dehydration interferes with mineral balance and worsens insulin resistance. Drink half your body weight in ounces of water daily. Plain water, not soda or coffee. What if you do everything right and still don't see results? First, get proper testing to confirm you actually have deficiencies and that you're correcting them. Second, check for other issues like thyroid problems, hormonal imbalances, chronic infections, or heavy metal toxicity. Third, verify your supplements are high quality and you're actually absorbing them. Fourth, review medications that might be working against you. Fifth, honestly evaluate whether stress and sleep are bigger problems than you've acknowledged. Sometimes you need professional guidance to identify what's blocking progress. That's not failure. That's being smart about getting the help you need. Let me talk about long term maintenance because this isn't a temporary quick fix. Once your minerals are restored and blood sugar has improved, you don't just stop and go back to old habits. You transition to maintenance, lower supplement doses, heavier reliance on mineral rich whole foods, continued stress management and sleep prioritization, regular blood sugar monitoring to catch any backsliding early. This becomes a sustainable lifestyle, not a short term intervention. The beautiful part is that once your cells respond properly to insulin again, maintaining good blood sugar becomes infinitely easier. You don't have to be as rigid. You have flexibility. Your body can handle occasional treats without everything collapsing. You've rebuilt true metabolic resilience. Think about where you are right now versus where you could be 6 months from now if you actually implement this. Right now, you might be struggling with stubborn high blood sugar, low energy, poor sleep, constant cravings, frustration, and fear about complications. 6 months from now, if you commit to this approach, you could have blood sugar in a much healthier range, reduced or eliminated medications, consistent energy through the day, restful sleep, minimal cravings, and genuine hope about your future health. That transformation is absolutely possible. I've seen it happen hundreds of times, but it requires you to take action. Not tomorrow, not next week, after things calm down, today, right now. Start with one supplement. Start with improving sleep by 30 minutes. Start with a 10-minute walk. Start with drinking more water. Start somewhere, anywhere, with one small action. Small, consistent actions compound into massive results over time. You are not broken. Your body wants to heal. It's designed to heal. You just need to give it the right tools and the right environment. Understanding is power. Action is change. Consistency is transformation. Take care of yourself. Start small, stay consistent, trust the process, and watch what happens when you give your body what it actually needs to thrive.